you don't have peace. You haven't had it for a long time, even though you try to pretend otherwise. You live trapped in a back and forth of thoughts that you can't control, emotions that hit you without warning, and a feeling of emptiness that sometimes you can't even explain. And the worst part? You believe this is how it should be. You believe that peace is a luxury reserved for a few enlightened ones, while you're condemned to this internal war. You've been made to believe that living like this is normal. But that's a lie. Inner peace is not an unattainable goal. It's not a state of perfection where everything is calm and there are never any conflicts. It's not about ignoring what you feel or fighting against negative thoughts. That just leads you to an endless battle with yourself. True peace is found in the way you interpret what you live. Because reality, however objective it may seem, is nothing but a projection of what's inside of you. Think about this. Two people can live the exact same situation, but one suffers and the other moves on as if nothing happened. Why? Because it's not what happens that affects you, but how you interpret it. Your mind is a filter, and that filter is conditioned by years of beliefs, wounds, and unconscious patterns. Carl Jung made it clear, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You are a slave to your mental programming. Since you were a child, you've absorbed ideas, fears, and ways of reacting that you now believe are yours. But they are not. They were imposed. They are echoes of what you saw in your parents, in society, in the experiences that marked your childhood. And every time you react automatically, every time fear, anger, or sadness dominates you without you knowing why, what's really happening is that the wounded child is still taking control. The question is, how long are you going to keep allowing it? The problem is that most people never stop to question this. They live on autopilot, repeating the same reactions, stumbling over the same mistakes, feeling the same wounds over and over again. And as long as you keep seeing life as a series of events that are beyond your control, you'll remain trapped. Because true freedom is not controlling what happens, but controlling how you interpret it. And that's where the key to unshakable peace lies. It's not about rejecting your emotions. It's not about running away from uncomfortable thoughts. It's about observing them without identifying with them. Because you are not your mind. You are not that internal dialogue that torments you every day. You are the one who listens, the one who observes, the awareness behind it all. But you've forgotten that. And as long as you keep believing that you are every thought that passes through your mind, you will remain at the mercy of endless chaos. The trick isn't to eliminate negative emotions, but to stop fighting them. Because when you resist, you strengthen what you're trying to avoid. When an emotion hits you, don't reject it. Don't suppress it. Observe it. Feel it. Let it be there without trying to change it. Because the moment you accept it, it loses power over you. Look at it this way. Your mind is a river. If you try to stop the current, you wear yourself out and achieve nothing. But if you learn to flow with it, you discover that you were never the water, but the observer on the shore. That is true power. Inner peace isn't about the world being perfect. It's about nothing external, having the power to knock you off balance. And for that, you need to practice presence. Be here and now. Not in the past, reliving wounds. Not in the future, anticipating fears. Here, in this moment. Because this is the only moment that really exists. The mind will always try to drag you somewhere else. It will throw thoughts at you, fill you with doubts, stories, and memories. But you are not that. If you manage to see the mind for what it is, a tool and not your identity, then and only then will you be free. And emotional freedom is the only kind that truly matters. The Stoics knew this well. It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it. There lies the difference between a life of suffering and a life of peace. The difference between living as a victim or as someone who has control over themselves. And if you understand this, if you truly internalize it, you will discover that no one and nothing will be able to take your calm away, because peace is not outside of you. It has always been inside of you. You just have to claim it. So tell me, are you going to keep letting the noise of the world dictate your internal state? Or are you going to take control once and for all? But here's what no one tells you. True inner peace is not just a matter of perception, but of power. Not power over others or over circumstances, but power over yourself. And that's where most people fail. Because everyone wants to feel calm, but few are willing to do what it takes to achieve it. Do you know what the greatest enemy of your peace is? Distraction. And I'm not just talking about social media, empty entertainment, or the constant noise around you. I'm talking about internal distraction. That inability to be alone with yourself without feeling discomfort. That need to fill every second with external stimuli because silence terrifies you. Have you ever asked yourself why? The answer is brutally simple. Because in silence, the truth appears. The truth about what you are, about what you've avoided, about the fears you're still dragging. And most people aren't ready to face that. That's why they look for escapes. They fill themselves with noise, distractions, unnecessary busyness. Because when the world goes silent, their demons start to speak. And that is unbearable. But here's the secret. The only way to find real peace is by going through that silence. Not running from it, not numbing it with more noise. Because inner peace is not the absence of conflict, but the ability to be at peace even in the middle of chaos. And that can only be achieved when you dare to look inside, without fear. The problem is that we live in a society that has taught us to avoid introspection. Everything is designed to keep you distracted. Excessive consumption, the constant need for validation, the obsession with being busy all the time. All of that is a trap designed to keep you asleep. Because someone who never stops to think about themselves will never discover their true power. And here's where something that few understand comes into play: the power of detachment. Because if you want unshakable peace, you need to learn to let go. And I'm not just talking about letting go of grudges or past pains. I'm talking about letting go of the need to control everything. The need for life to fit your expectations. Because that is the main source of suffering. Resistance to accepting what is. Look around you. Most people are trapped in a constant fight against reality. They want things to be different. They want people to act the way they expect. They want the world to accommodate their desires. And when that doesn't happen, they suffer. They get frustrated. They fill themselves with anger or sadness. But reality never stops. It doesn't care what you want. So why keep fighting against it? The key is to accept what you can't control and focus only on what does depend on you. Your perception, your reaction, your internal state. That is true power. Everything else is just noise. Because when you learn to let go of that need for control, you stop being a victim of circumstances. And that's when you're truly free. But letting go isn't easy. It requires a radical change in the way you see life. It requires understanding that attachment to anything external, people, opinions, results, is a chain you've put on yourself. And as long as you stay tied to the external, you will never have true peace. Because you'll always be at the mercy of what happens outside of you. So the question is, are you willing to let go? Are you willing to give up the illusion of control and accept life as it is? Because that's the only way to free yourself once and for all. And here's where everything connects. Inner peace, detachment, perception. They all point to one single truth. Life is a mirror. It doesn't reflect what you want. It reflects what you are. If there's chaos inside you, you'll see chaos everywhere. If there's calm inside you, nothing will be able to disturb you. But that calm is not found outside. It's not found in a better situation, in another person, in more money, or in more success. It's found in the way you choose to interpret what happens. That's why the real question isn't how to find peace. The real question is, are you ready to stop resisting life and start living in harmony with it? Because when you do, when you truly do, you'll realize something incredible. The peace you were looking for outside has always been inside of you. You just had to remove what was blocking it. The true test of your inner peace isn't calm, but the storm. Anyone can feel calm when things are going well, when there are no problems, when life seems aligned with what you want. But real peace is not what you have when everything is easy. It's what you manage to maintain when everything around you is crumbling. And that's where most people fail. They think that to be at peace, they need the outside world to be in order. That if they fix their relationships, if they achieve their goals, if they have more money, if they're finally understood and respected by others, then they'll be able to feel calm. But that's the fatal mistake. Because as long as your peace depends on something outside of you, it will never be yours. It will be a loan, something the world gives you, that the world can take away at any time. That's where resilience comes into play. And resilience is not what they've sold you. It's not just being strong or enduring the blows of life. It's something much deeper. True resilience is the ability to transform suffering into growth, to make even the darkest moments play in your favor. Look at the people who have evolved the most in their lives, the ones who've achieved unshakable peace. What do they have in common? They haven't had an easy life. They haven't been protected from adversity. They've gone through hell. But instead of letting the pain destroy them, they used it to become more aware, wiser, freer. That's the difference between someone who sinks and someone who rises, what they do with their pain. And here's the key. Peace is not found by avoiding suffering, but by changing your relationship with it. Life will hit you. It doesn't matter how much you meditate, how much you read, how much you grow. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And the only difference between pain and suffering is the interpretation you give it. When something hurts, you have two options: use it or be used by it. Most people let pain define them. They get stuck in resentment, in victimization, in nostalgia for what could have been. But those who truly understand how life works turn pain into fuel, into a tool to expand, to evolve, to become someone who doesn't falter at anything. Look at nature. A forest needs to catch fire to regenerate. Coal needs extreme pressure to turn into a diamond. And you are no different. What makes you suffer today could be what strengthens you tomorrow. If you choose to see it that way, if you choose to ask the right question, how can I use this to grow? And here's the most powerful part. When you start to see life this way, everything changes. You stop fearing pain. You stop resisting what happens, because you understand that no matter what happens, you can always turn it into something valuable. And when you no longer fear losing anything, when you know that even in the worst storm, you can find something that makes you stronger, that's when you reach true peace. But there's one obstacle on this path: attachment to identity. You've been told you are a certain way, that you have a story, a past, a series of labels that define who you are. And that becomes a prison. Because when you believe you are your story, you cling to it. You cling to your wounds, to your traumas, to your old beliefs. Because without them, who are you? That's the question that terrifies most people. That's why they keep reliving the same stories in their heads. That's why they keep reacting the same way over and over again, even when they know it harms them. Because the ego prefers the known to the unknown, even if the known is suffering. But here's the brutal truth. To achieve unshakable peace, you have to be willing to die. Not physically, but psychologically. You have to let the version of you that's trapped in the past disappear. You have to let go of the story you've told yourself about who you are, and open up to the possibility of being someone completely new. And that's scary because the ego hates uncertainty. But in that uncertainty lies freedom. Because when you stop clinging to a fixed identity, you stop reacting automatically. You stop living with the same fears, the same patterns, the same self-imposed limits. You become flexible, adaptable, indestructible. That's the true internal revolution. It's not about controlling life, but about learning to flow with it without losing yourself in the process. It's about letting go of the need for things to be the way you want them, and instead, learning to play with what is. Because life is not a battle you have to win. It's a river you have to learn to swim in. So tell me, are you ready to let go of the story that keeps you trapped? Are you ready to stop seeing pain as an enemy and start using it as a tool? Because that's the difference between a life full of suffering and a life full of peace. And in the end, there's only one question that matters. Are you going to keep running away from yourself? Or are you finally going to face what's inside of you and reclaim the power that's always been yours? There's a trap that almost everyone falls into at some point on the path to inner peace, and it's the obsession with control. They believe that if they manage to control their emotions, their thoughts, their reactions, then they'll be at peace. That if they control others, circumstances, the future, then nothing will shake them. But the reality is different. The more you try to control, the more you suffer. Because control is an illusion, a mirage that your mind creates to feel safe. But life cannot be controlled. The world doesn't follow a script written by you. People aren't going to act as you expect. Things aren't always going to turn out the way you want. And the sooner you accept that, the closer you'll be to the peace you're looking for. Look at how most people live. Tense, anxious, worried about what's going to happen tomorrow, about what someone might think of them, about whether something they said was misunderstood. Always in a state of internal resistance. Always trying to anticipate what's coming, as if that gave them some sort of advantage. But all they manage to do is drain themselves, wear themselves out mentally and emotionally, because total control doesn't exist. It never has. And the sooner you understand that, the sooner you'll free yourself. True peace is not in controlling life, but in trusting that you can handle whatever comes. It's a subtle shift, but it changes everything. You stop needing guarantees. You stop clinging to the idea that everything has to go the way you want. Instead, you develop an inner certainty. No matter what happens, I will find a way to keep standing. But there's something working against you in this process. The fear of uncertainty, the fear of not knowing what's going to happen. And that's what keeps you trapped in the illusion of control. You think that if you plan enough, if you analyze all the possibilities, if you prepare for every scenario, then you'll be safe. But you're never safe, because life always finds a way to surprise you. And the more you resist that, the more you suffer. The key is not to avoid uncertainty, but to learn to be comfortable in it. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. What disturbs men are not things, but the interpretations they give to them, said Epictetus. And here's the key point. The fear of the unknown doesn't come from uncertainty itself, but from the story you tell yourself about what could happen. It's your mind projecting negative scenarios, imagining problems, creating monsters that only exist in your head. But if instead of resisting uncertainty, you accept it, everything changes. Because uncertainty is not the enemy. It's the playing field where everything is possible, where opportunities are born, where creativity flourishes, where the best things in life happen. Think about the most incredible moments of your life. How many of them were planned down to the smallest detail? How many turned out exactly the way you imagined? Almost none. The best experiences, the greatest lessons, the deepest changes happen amidst chaos, in the unexpected, in what you couldn't foresee. So here's the real question. Are you going to keep clinging to the illusion of control? Or are you going to learn to flow with life without fear? Because that's where real peace lies. Not in controlling every detail, but in trusting your ability to adapt. But there's a problem. Self-confidence isn't built overnight. And here's where another crucial point comes into play in this journey: your internal dialogue. Because what good is accepting uncertainty if your own mind is an enemy? How can you find peace if every thought that passes through your head is an attack against yourself? People underestimate the impact of their internal dialogue. They don't realize that what they tell themselves over and over becomes their reality. If your inner voice is a constant source of criticism, doubt, and negativity, then, no matter how much you try to change your external life, you'll always carry that internal battle with you. And here's the key: the way you talk to yourself is what defines how you feel about yourself. If every mistake you make becomes an attack on your worth, you'll never have peace. If every time you fail, you punish yourself instead of learning, you'll never have emotional freedom. If every negative thought you have is taken as an absolute truth instead of questioned, you'll be trapped in an endless internal war. The voice in your head is not the truth. It's just an echo of your beliefs, your past experiences, and the fears you've accumulated. But you can change it. You can reprogram it. You can train your mind to work for you instead of against you. And when you do, everything changes. Because true peace is not just the absence of external conflict, but also the ability to live in harmony with your own thoughts. So tell me, are you going to keep allowing your mind to be your prison? Or are you going to transform it into your ally? Because the peace you're looking for isn't in controlling life. It's in learning to live in peace with yourself. And that's the greatest power you can achieve. So what does all of this mean? What's the end point of this journey? The point is simple. Peace is not something you find. It's something you build day by day, thought by thought, decision by decision. It's the result of what you choose to allow in your mind, of what you decide to let go of, and of how you choose to interpret everything that happens to you. People keep looking for answers outside when the answers have always been inside. They keep waiting for life to change when the only transformation that really matters is the one that happens inside. And here's the truth that few dare to accept. No one is going to come to save you. No one is going to show up one day and give you the peace you're looking for. There's no guru, no book, no video, no philosophy that will do the work for you. It's all in your hands. It always has been. The difference between someone who keeps suffering and someone who finds peace isn't luck, intelligence, or circumstances. It's in what they do with what they have, in how they interpret what happens to them, and in what they choose to believe about themselves. So the real question isn't whether you can achieve peace, because of course you can. The question is, are you willing to do what it takes to achieve it? Because inner peace is not free. It requires effort. It requires facing yourself. It requires questioning everything you believe to be true about who you are and how life works. It requires letting go of the past, accepting the present, and stopping fearing the future. Most people aren't willing to pay that price. They prefer to stay in their comfort zone, even if it means staying at war with themselves. But if you've come this far, if you're still listening, it's because deep down, you know there's another way to live. You know that true freedom isn't outside of you, but in what's happening inside. So here's the challenge. Choose. You can keep going the way you have been. Letting the world dictate your emotional state, reacting to everything that happens outside of you, being a victim of your own thoughts. Or you can start changing everything. Not all at once, not in one day, but step by step. Because every time you choose to let go instead of cling, every time you choose to question instead of react, every time you choose to observe instead of identify, you are building the peace you've been searching for. And the good news is, you don't have to wait. You don't have to reach a certain point in your life to start. You can do it now, here, in this very moment. Because peace is not in the future. It's in how you decide to live this moment. So tell me, what do you choose? If this video made you think, if something you heard resonated with you, I want you to leave a comment with this phrase, I choose peace. Because writing it is not just a comment, it's a commitment to yourself. And if you want more content like this, subscribe. Not because I say so, but because what we're building here goes way beyond a video. It's a mindset shift. If you're ready to take the next step, I'll see you in the next one. Until then, choose wisely. And if this spoke to you, subscribe to Psyche Nomad. This is just the beginning.